Hi there, welcome to today's video. In today's video, we're going to be going over the main themes or energies happening in the month of February 2023. This is a general astrology forecast for all of the zodiac signs, no matter if you're a Leo or an Aquarius or a Pisces. And the idea behind this forecast is to just sort of enlighten all of us about what we can expect for the upcoming month. And you can, of course, refer to this as your sort of anchor point throughout the month if you need to sort of refresh and come back to this crazy time and what you're feeling. There are two archetypes that I think are quite prominent in the month of February. And this is the archetype of Aquarius and the archetype of Pisces. And the reason why we might be feeling these two archetypes a little bit more prominently this month is because the sun will stay in Aquarius for half of the month, and then for the second half of the month move into the sign of Pisces. When we take a look at these two archetypes, there is a sort of progression or an evolution of the sign of the energy. The sign of Aquarius, the energy of Aquarius that we talked about in last month, is really about this energy of self-expression. And self-expression, even though it might mean that we're displeasing the group, even though it might mean that the people closest to us, the people we care about, maybe don't agree with what we say or what we think. And a lot of these sort of the uniqueness and the self-expression of Aquarius can originate in terms of some intellectual thoughts or ideas about the larger world, about the way we should live our lives, about how our society setup just doesn't work nowadays. So the Aquarius rebelliousness and uniqueness and self-expression can be quite lofty. It can be quite concerned with some of these more higher level ideals or thoughts. So when we see that sign sort of progress or evolve into Pisces, what we actually see is that these ideals or these thoughts start to become a little bit more transcendental. As we start to express our truth as an Aquarius or as somebody embodying the energy of Aquarius, as we start to express our own truth, we start to realize a lot of the times that the world is quite subjective, that sometimes there is no one truth. And a lot of the times what we even consider as the world is just a perception. It's just our own experience of the world. And this is what the energy of Pisces is dealing with. The energy of Pisces is about realizing this and about trying to maneuver and still exist in an earthly life while realizing that actually life is all about consciousness. It's all about our thoughts, about how we see the world, that it all originates from there. There is no one cohesive story or unity to all of this. So you might find naturally that as we sort of shift and go through the month of February, that you start to see some of your uniqueness, some of your rebellious ideas or out-of-the-box thinking, that all of a sudden it starts to translate less and less away from the real physical world, but more into realizing that there is so much power. If we do want these ideals, if we do want to see them come to life, there is so much power into changing our consciousness first, how we approach the world, how we show up in the world. You know, what I see the sign of Aquarius as is sort of a child that is really excited about some sort of grand idea. A child that's excited about oh, but what if we don't do work that we dislike, but we actually do work that we love, and we love going to work? And the community around us might think, yeah, that's not possible, definitely not. Or who are you to think that you can do that? Like, if I suffer through my work, then you also have to suffer through your work. And eventually, I think as that's energy, as the Aquarius energy is sort of expressing itself and sharing these radical ideals, no matter what the group says, the natural evolution over time is realizing that the way to make these ideals come to life is through themselves, through their consciousness, through their perception, through sometimes just starting to do it, starting to do something that they love as their job. Sometimes the tendencies of the Piscean energy is that it just stays on that sort of daydreaming level. You know, you realize that there is no objective truth, that everything we're experiencing in life is our perception, that we're coloring all of our experiences based on how we grew up, beliefs that we have. And sometimes realizing that the Piscean energy can withdraw from the world, maybe even say then nothing's worth it. You know, there is really no point in pursuing physical things. There is no point in reacting when a bad situation happens, for example. However, I think during this time, even though we do have a lot of Piscean energy, we also have Venus and, we also have Neptune in Pisces and Venus for half of the month. I do not think that this is a sort of tendency that we'll be feeling in February. And the reason I'm saying this is that because we have Jupiter and for the second half of the month, Venus in the sign of Aries. The sign of Aries is the beginning of the zodiac, which means that a full cycle finishes with the sign of Pisces, this ultimate realization that actually all of this is just about our perception. It's just about what we make of it. And from there, a new cycle begins with Aries. That sort of birth of, wow, I'm here. I was given life, and I want to prove that I'm worth it, and I'm not going to waste any minute of it. So seeing as we have two really great, magnificent planets, Venus and Jupiter, in the sign of Aries, I think that this sort of transcendental, dreamy quality of February will also bring up into us a little bit of sort of that beginning of the cycle. That the realization of, this is all subjective. It all starts with my thoughts, my intentions. That sort of starts to motivate or regenerate our excitement for life. That it starts to really make life a bit lighter, a bit easier, a bit, well, if I can just create reality with my thoughts, that is amazing, that is liberating, and I'm gonna go out and just do it. That sort of freshness and activeness energy of Aries. So I would just say, notice for yourself in the month of February, when you start to get a little bit more of those transcendental feelings of, or existential feelings, I should say, of, yeah, but what's the point of any of this? And you start to deeply realize that it's all about our perception. Just notice where you stand on the point of action. Neither is better than the other. But just notice if maybe for you, you're always focused on action. And in the month of February, it just feels nice to step back and dream and idealize and just have a realization without needing to do anything on it. On the other side, if you're often in the dreamland and you're often thinking about grand plans and grand ideals and how the world is going to change, perhaps in the month of February, play a little bit with this Aries energy. play a little bit with this idea of, so what does that mean about the way I show up in the world tomorrow when I wake up? There's one more theme that I want to chat about in our February forecast. And this is about the big shift that will be happening with Pluto. Not in February, the shift will be happening in March. But the reason I want to bring this up is that Pluto is right at the very end of Capricorn. All of February and I believe the beginning half of March. Pluto is slowly, like literally the last 2 degrees of Capricorn, just slowly shifting from Capricorn into Aquarius. And I think this, of course, symbolizes a wrap-up of a certain chapter of our life, a chapter that began 20 years ago, and symbolizes sort of fresh energy. And I think this ties really beautifully into these themes we've been talking about with moving from Aquarius, innovative thoughts, into Pisces, transcendental realizations, and all the way into Aries, which is actually more of the March conversation, but all the way into Aries of, so what does that mean about my childlike vigor of how I show up in the everyday? The reason why Pluto ties in so nicely into this conversation is because Pluto represents our deep subconscious thoughts. Pluto, in a lot of ways, can be quite a heavy energy to deal with sometimes in our life because it basically says, what's the point of all of this? It's a little bit of an existential planet, but to the point that it encourages us to ask ourselves, what is my destiny really? Why? How can I make my life meaningful? Pluto is really asking those deeper questions. And a lot of the times it does ask us to go into subconscious, to go into our beliefs, to go into the ways we were raised, to go into the ideals that society has for us, the Aquarius energy, to go into the ideals that we have about a better world. And is there something deep within us that maybe we don't think is worthy of pursuing those, that doesn't think those ideals are possible, perhaps? So Pluto will be sort of wrapping up these questions in the archetype of Capricorn and moving into the archetype of Aquarius. So I think that what you might see happening in February and the first beginning of March is that these sort of themes, especially around Capricornian ideas, like maybe more earthy pursuits, maybe this sort of, the last 20 years you've been dealing with the sort of destiny or your meaning being into earthly means, again, and nothing negative or positive about that, just one type of destiny. Start to sort of wrap that up, and you might gently, we'll chat about this in March, but start to shift into this idea of a more air type of quality, a more air type of destiny or purpose or meaning. Thinking about, can my destiny be in my intellect? Can my destiny be in my self-expression? Into being uniquely myself as an individual. All Aquarius themes. And I think Pluto in Aquarius will start to bring those ideas up, and especially the subconscious beliefs that we might have around, but why don't I want to self-express? What do I think will happen if I become uniquely myself? But anyways, all of this is getting a little bit too much into March. What I basically wanted to say is that there's this wrap up of the themes that have been happening in your life, around your destiny, around your subconscious beliefs, oriented with all sorts of things as to hard work, as to solitary work, as to material means. Capricorn is an earth archetype. And you might start to see that over February and the beginning of March, some of those themes are getting a sort of nice wrap up, a nice rounding off. And I think at this point, it's also a nice time to just reflect on maybe some of the themes that came up, maybe journaling about it, and just thinking, what did I learn in this 20-year period? How did I deal with these Plutonian themes, with my subconscious beliefs, especially in relation to Capricorn themes, right? In relations of hard work and earthly pursuits. And what does that mean about how I'm going to show up in the world tomorrow morning? What does that mean about how I'm going to show up in the world the minute Pluto strikes 0 degrees of Aquarius? It's a closing of a chapter, and I think a lot of the times we don't take enough time to just sit and reflect on what we have learned and what that means for the future, especially what that means for the future. So I do encourage you to do that in February. It's a perfect month to do that and to reflect on Pluto and Capricorn. I hope this forecast has been helpful for you. I wanted to thank you so much for joining me today. Leave any comments below if you have any sort of questions on anything that I brought up. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.